the call. So thank you again. एक थोड़ा सा climate for पाकिस्तान का एक introduction करा देता हूँ. Then we'll just get into the outcomes. So again, hi everyone, welcome to the call. My name is Durlabh Ashok. I'm one of the co-founders of Climate for Pakistan. हम लोग एक youth-led organization है that basically came together in the sidelines of COP27 जो कि Sharm el Sheikh है, and like in the middle of this year we decided to formalize stuff and launch the Climate for Pakistan. So we have been operating for a few months now, roughly 6 months, give or take a week or two, and moving forward, we would be launching some projects. I hear some disturbance. Please, if you could just unmute yourself if you're not speaking. Halia? Yep. Yep. Thank you. So yeah, let's get into like a quick for like a summary. Again, this is not an exhaustive list at all. This is a quick summary of what the outcomes at COP28 look like. Again, अगर आपको detail में जाना है, I believe there is online resources available, and I think हम लोग अपनी website में भी कुछ चीजें put on कर होंगे. So again, this is a very limited in terms of what happened. So एक दो चीजें, again, this was a bit surprising, especially because opening ceremony, so that is the plenary, like the start of the entire COP conference, loss and damage fund were operationalized and was finalized. तो कुछ चीजें इसमें से इंटरेस्टिंग हैं जो कि थोड़ा सा पुशबैक भी आया था, स्पेशली विद रिगार्ड टू वर्ल्ड बैंक, because there were countries that were saying कि वर्ल्ड बैंक होस्ट ना करें, but towards the end it was decided कि अभी वर्ल्ड बैंक पे ही रखते हैं एटलीस्ट फॉर द नेक्स्ट 4 years, फिर बाद में देखेंगे. So an entity जो बनाई जाएगी would be under UNFCCC financial mechanism, जिसके 26 board होंगे. Again, US pushed for climate impact response fund instead of loss and damage, so वो semantic triple, there were some issues. Again, अभी भी हम लोग देखें इसके अंदर कि कितनी financial contribution हो गई है. So it still stands at 770 million is the updated number. में और भी आगे होंगे, pretty sure, but still it's a very little when it comes to looking at what kind of damages the global south countries especially are going for, right? In terms of just Pakistan, Pakistan के अगर से हम लोग देखें what the challenge has been and the kind of impact that Pakistan has been experiencing, so वो भी billions में है, but again it's a very small fund, but at least they have operationalized and it's there, and hopefully it will grow over the next couple of months. थोड़ा substantial में funding आ जाएगी, especially in terms of the countries जो उसमें funding करें. Alright, so now let's quickly look at the adaptation. So parties were again tasked to मिला था उनको framework करा था कि how they can like again guide their adaptation progress. So उसमें तीन चार themes थी important: water, food, health ecosystem, infrastructure, poverty eradication, for example, and cultural heritage. So जो draft text आया था, that was like again it emerged on the 5th day of the event. जो G77 and China थे, इन लोग ने बोला था कि GCA framework जो है उसके अंदर इनको adopt करेंगे हम लोग. Developed countries again oppose the inclusion of common but differentiated responsibilities and respective capabilities, जो CBDR और CR करके इसको वो कर देते हैं. तो LDMSCs और अरब ग्रुप ने इसकी ब्लॉक करी थी प्रोग्रेस के ऊपर. So a draft decision was produced 2 days before COP28 was due to end, so decision आ गया था. So that's at least a good thing that they were able to come together and agree on something rather than keeping it for the next year. तो एग्रीकल्चर एंड फूड सिक्योरिटी थोड़ा इंटरेस्टिंगली था क्योंकि शर्म एल शेख जॉइंट इम्प्लीमेंटेशन ऑफ क्लाइमेट एक्शन हुआ था पिछले साल, जिसको SSJW भी कहते हैं, और ये जो है COP23 में जो अग्री हुआ था जॉइंट वर्क फॉर एग्रीकल्चर, COP23 जो बॉन में हुई थी 2017 में, उसका एक तरीके से सक्सेसर है. तो इट एस्टैब्लिश्ड रोड मैप जिसमें तीन तीन बड़ी बड़ी चीजें हैं। इस वर्कशॉप के अंदर आ रहा है कि इसके अंदर आपकी जो टॉपिक्स होंगे वो कौन से डिसाइड होंगे। इट ऑल्सो established a online portal for submission under this workshop or determine how the work itself would be carried out and synthesized in terms of reporting उसकी कैसे की जाएंगी। तो डेवलप कंट्रीज जो थे दे सजेस्टेड कि हम लोग एक क्लीन शीट के साथ स्टार्ट देते हैं, और डेवलपिंग कंट्री जो थे दे सपोर्टेड यूजिंग एन इनफॉर्मल नोट जो कि बॉन जून में हुआ था, जिससे वो लोग बेसिस ले रहे थे विद दी निगोशिएशंस जो कॉप 28 में हुई थी। So G77 and China proposed a coordination group जो कि एक facilitation group बनाना चाह रहे थे to implement the joint work program और developed countries express concern over the what the group would achieve, तो क्या करेंगे, and cost वगैरह के ऊपर भी कुछ मामला पे there were significant concerns within the global south, उसके ऊपर थोड़ी चीजें थी। अच्छा, तो दिस विल कंटिन्यू डिस्कशंस के ऊपर SB60 जो कि जून में हो रहा है अगले साल। तो ये इनफॉर्मल नोट हो गया है बॉन की तरफ फॉरवर्ड। अगेन बॉन इज वेयर द यूनिवर्सिटी का सेक्रेटेरिएट है, एंड अगेन देयर इज नो लीगल स्टेटस एज ऑफ येट, बट नोट फॉरवर्ड हो गया। सो होपफुली आगे चल के देयर वुड बी नेक्स्ट कॉप में कुछ के अंदर सिग्निफिकेंट जो अजरबैजान में हो रहा है बाकू के अंदर, होपफुली तो उसके अंदर देयर वुड बी सिग्निफिकेंट डेवलपमेंट at this conference. So Article 6 carbon markets and cooperative approaches के ऊपर deal करता है। Again, there was no consensus built during the conference. Article 6.2 sorry, जो कि bilateral country to country carbon trading के mechanism है। इसके अलावा 6.4 जो कि centralized international carbon markets, now जो carbon markets अभी भी operate कर रही हैं, they are working within these various regions, और उसके अंदर दे आर वर्किंग बट एक कंसोलिडेटेड एक सेंट्रलाइज्ड चीजें जो हैं दैट वाज मिसिंग और पे अभी नहीं हुआ है। अगेन होप इज अगेन नेक्स्ट ईयर ड्यूरिंग कॉप कुछ चीजें से मटेरियलाइज हो सके। क्या ओके, माय लाइट्स ओके, होल्ड ऑन। एक और जो इंटरेस्टिंग चीज थी वाज रिगार्डिंग सम ऑफ स्लाइड आर्ट वर्किंग, जो जीएसटी था। तो जीएसटी अगेन थोड़ा सा बैकग्राउंड देने के लिए ग्लोबल स्टॉक टेक। सो दिस वाज अंडर द पेरिस एग्रीमेंट जो कि डेवलप हुआ था। बेसिकली एनडीसीज जो नेशनली डिटरमिन्ड कंट्रीब्यूशन होते हैं उसको स्टॉक टेक करने के लिए कि क्या प्रोग्रेस हुई है एंड हाउ चीजें प्रोग्रेस हो गई हैं इन टर्म्स ऑफ आर वी एबल टू mitigate the targets जो हमने set out किया था again within the UN system in CCC convention के अंदर भी to limit the greenhouse gas emissions, और जहाँ पर एक hard target और soft targets हैं 2 degrees के ऊपर और 1.5 degrees के ऊपर। so again GST concluded, पहला GST था, उसके बाद YST भी हुआ था। I don't know how many of you know what the YST is, so that's huge stock take। Unfortunately हम लोग उसमें ज्यादा बात नहीं करेंगे, but young people came together for the first time and they decided कि इस साल हम लोग एक यूथ स्टॉक टेक भी लेते हैं, जस्ट ट्राइंग टू सी हाउ द यूथ मूवमेंट एंड द यूथ इन्वॉल्वमेंट विद इन द UNFCCC प्रोसेस हैज प्रोग्रेस्ड ओवर द इयर्स, और उसमें क्या अपडेट्स हैं और क्या चीजें बेहतर की जा सकती हैं। जस्ट ट्राइंग टू क्रिएट ए कंसेंसस बेस्ड रिपोर्ट जो कि यंगो ने लीड की थी इस साल। तो दैट इज आल्सो क्वाइट इंटरेस्टिंग, जो कि आई थिंक COP28 की वेबसाइट पर मिल जाएगी इफ एनीवन इज इंटरेस्टेड टू लर्न अबाउट व्हाट द यूथ स्टॉक टेक इज। But generally speaking, जो ग्लोबल स्टॉक टेक हुआ था, what they found was obviously ये पहले भी था कि अगर हम लोग एनडीसीज को टू द पॉइंट जो उन्होंने वर्डिंग करी है अगर उसको हम लोग मान भी लें, जो कि अनफॉर्चुनेटली नहीं होगा, जो भी चीजें प्रोमिसेस प्लेजेस होते हैं एनडीसीज के अंदर, we still fall short in terms of keeping the temperature well below the 1.5 degrees. So 2 degrees के ऊपर जा रहा था आई थिंक, और कुछ projections was on the 3 डिग्री के ऊपर भी लेके जा रही थी। सो अगेन ओवरऑल वो थोड़ा सा डाउनर मूवमेंट था इन टर्म्स ऑफ मी, बिकॉज आई वाज लुकिंग एट द जीएसटी और एलएनडी के चले स्टार्टिंग में हो गई थी तो हम लोग कुछ और फोकस शिफ्ट कर लिया था। बट अगेन एलएनडी भी जो प्रोग्रेस हुई है, फंड ऑपरेशनलाइज हो गया, फंडिंग आ गई है, बट स्टिल अ वेरी लिमिटेड फंड इन टर्म्स ऑफ व्हाट नीडेड, और वो कैसे उसको ज्यादा एक्सपेडाइट कर सकते हैं। या दिस वाज इट in terms of quick snapshot। अगेन में 100 चीजें और भी हुई थी at the at the cost, especially in terms of health के ऊपर भी चीजें आई थी, then renewables के ऊपर भी आई थी चीजें. Again, we could not cover everything obviously, क्योंकि उसमें फिर आधा घंटा लग जाएगा, यहीं बैठे रहेंगे हम लोग. तो क्विक स्नैपशॉट हमने प्रोवाइड करा है in terms of what the major outcomes, especially in terms of Pakistan, क्या क्या चीजें हुई हैं on how we can relate to this. And the session is also organized in terms of a perspective POV from Pakistan. And now I would like to invite Zainab. If you're here, if you could just take the lead on this, and again we can invite our speakers and have a conversation around these topics and trying to create a consensus, I would hope, or a way forward towards the end of the session as well. So yeah, over to you, Zainab.
Yeah, thank you so much, Durlabh, for giving us an overview of what happened at COP and what were the outcomes. I would also like to welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining in. I can see our speakers have also joined. So before I introduce the speakers briefly, I'll just give you an overview of what essentially we are aiming to discuss in this session after what Durlabh has shared. So in this session, we'll be asking our speakers to share their reflections and takeaways of what they think is important for Pakistan after COP and also in the international context. So I hope that our participants know that COP28 recently concluded last week in Dubai, out of which we have a final outcome, which is called as UAE Consensus. So it's basically, I would say, the COP outcome draft is called as UAE Consensus. And the primary objective of this debrief session is to facilitate a reflection on the outcomes and key decisions coming out of COP28, as well as see how these outcomes and takeaways are relevant for Pakistani context, so that we can keep that ambition continued after COP. Our speaker is, I would say, a very good blend of young professionals, climate activists, advocates, as well as very seasoned climate experts. And they will offer their perspectives on what developments took place and how we can move forward in a Pakistani context and foster the understanding of challenges as well as opportunities which Pakistan can cash on moving forward. So towards the end of the session, we expect to have a very clear vision of how we can keep this ambition alive in our national context, as well as I believe we'll be able to get insights on how we can contribute to the roadmap to enhance the resilience and effectiveness of whatever action we take in the national context. So with this, I would just briefly share the run of the program. So we have divided the discussion in 2 tiers. In first section, we are going to have 6 speakers. We have Rafay with us, who is an environmental lawyer. Hania Imran, who is a climate justice activist. We have Dr. Imran Khalid with us, who is director of governance and policy at WWF-Pakistan. We have Emaan Danish with us, who is a young ecopreneur and climate activist. We have Mr. Bilal Anwar, who is the CEO of NDRMF, National Disaster Risk Management Fund. And hopefully we'll be joined by Kamran Naeem Saab from UNICEF. So I would request all the speaker, if it's convenient, if you can open your video, if it's convenient for better engagement with the audience. And I'm not gonna share any questions. It's gonna be an open mic session where we want to hear what essentially you think on the topic. What are the reflections and takeaways for Pakistani audience? Especially we have, I think, very good blend of attendees, including young people as well as very seasoned climate professionals. So considering the good age representation, maybe I would request Dr. Maybe Rafay to go first, and yeah, the other sequence, maybe I'll keep sharing afterwards. So yeah, please, sir, over to you.
Thank you, Zainab, and thank you, CFP, for organizing this opportunity to talk and reflect about what happened at COP. Excuse me, I've got a dog who doesn't like a cat next door, so you might hear some barking. There's nothing I can do about it. Well, let's start by saying that, you know, one of the elephants in the room was the fact that the events, the massacres in Palestine have to some extent diverted world attention, and rightfully so. Because if you're for climate justice, you have to be against genocide. It's part and parcel of the deal. But let's not forget that this was the hottest year on record. And we've seen evidence of the impacts of that global warming throughout the year. Shocking scenes in Greece, where 2 years of rain fell in 3 days and destroyed the country's agriculture. Absolutely horrific news from Libya, where the same storm that rained over Greece broke a dam in the city of Derna and drowned 11,000 people overnight, in one night. And then we saw images on social media of floods in China, in Spain, and in frankly too many countries and cities to name over here. So the climate crisis is real, and it puts into sharp relief the objective of the UNFCCC, which is to stabilize greenhouse gas emissions. You can only do that by mitigation. And so while some people have welcomed this COP's decision to phase out fossil fuels, do remember it's taken 28 COPs to be able to come to this point. I fear that we're losing time on the very important issue of collectively being able to negotiate, especially the larger economies in the world, to agree to reduce greenhouse gases dramatically. So in some respect at the international level, I feel some disappointment in this COP. It's insufficient in the commitments that are needed to reduce greenhouse gases. It's insufficient in the commitments put in and the pledges put in on climate finance. Both mitigation and finance are promises embedded in the UNFCCC, Kyoto, and Paris Agreement protocols. It's all there. These are promises meant for the international community, and there's not enough being done about it. We should be able to see through the frankly hot air that a lot of people have been putting out about this COP and its various alleged successes. We have to keep our moral clarity about what is required, what is right, and what's right and required is mitigation. And that requires massive social and economic change internationally. At a local level, we have to stop seeing COP as, Pakistan has to stop seeing COP as a place where it can attract foreign exchange. I mean, yes, climate finance is part and parcel of the UNFCCC process, but it's more nuanced than that. It's not that simple कि हम वहाँ पैसे जाकर मांगने जाएं कि जी loss and damage fund के पैसे कब मिलेंगे, ये देखें जी हम project कर रहे हैं, हमें पैसे दें. Secondly, beyond treating COP in this narrow boxed way, we have to improve the governance in Pakistan when it comes to addressing climate change. I know we have a federal policy and a national act on climate change, but a lot of climate governance, things like most things adaptation actually, agriculture, irrigation, urban planning, transportation, even emissions from industries, these are all matters of provincial governance. And we have to see the provinces now really address these issues in a more meaningful way. Not just that, but at a local level, we need to see this happening. We don't see this happening, especially in our large cities. I'm reminded by something my colleague and friend on social media, Faizan Khatak, said, कि हमने IMF से पैसे बड़ा कहूँ overpass बनाने के लिए नहीं लिए थे. And this is absolutely true. We have to stop spending billions and billions of rupees on projects that exacerbate or worsen our resilience. The amounts of money that are put in our cities for automobile dependence that will exacerbate air pollution needs to be addressed through things like governance. Not just that, but that's just a reflection. That's just one aspect of things all across our governance structure. In other areas, we seem to be prioritizing the wrong things. I think governance needs to be addressed really through better representation. This is an election year. I feel wistful that climate change is not on the agenda on a day-to-day basis when it comes to the pressing issues that Pakistan is facing. If you see what the mainstream media is reporting on nowadays, it's not climate change. And we need to be able to change that by raising our voices and having a governance system that addresses climate change in a meaningful way. And lastly, I was deeply impressed and heartened by the participation of young people at this COP. You guys did a fantastic job. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I think you rightly pointed out that Pakistan needs to see COP28 as an avenue to channel funding, and secondly, on the importance of the provincial engagement. So yeah, very, very pertinent and I think relevant for Pakistani context to better prepare of how we present our case at next COP and how we leverage this opportunity to better engage at the national government level and provincial level. So with this, I'll move on to Hania. Hania, if you are with us, please share your views on how do you see COP once we are back now as a young person and as a climate justice activist.
Assalamualaikum, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I think as a young person, and I apologize if there's noise because I'm outside. As a young person, I think the COP was once again, it was heartbreaking to say the least. I don't think I understood real sadness until I've attended COPs because I was there last year as well. Is the we had fairly the transition away from fossil fuels in the text, and they say that and the loss and damage fund which was operationalized, which is great, but we बात है कि ये जो texts and pledges and promises हैं, like they're non-binding and they've made its many promises before and they haven't come through with them. So we बात है कि as a young person, like this isn't even about our future anymore. ये हमारा present है, like अभी ये चीजें हो रही हैं हम like Pakistan में और you know, as some people say, oh, you're the future, but we are already there. Like we are the present. We are part of these conversations already. So our government or our country should be including young people in policy making in those decisions. And yeah, I think I agree mostly with what Sir Rafay said. And yeah, but what I do appreciate is that a lot of people like is the we had पहली दफा state delegations से young लोग आए हैं COP पे, which we have not seen before. So and through a sort of process. So that was very encouraging to see. I think although उसमें भी बहुत deficiencies थी, but to see that happening, I think it's a good first step. And that was one of the better things about COP. Moreover, जो young लोग हैं, we did a campaign on an equitable fossil fuel phase out, which is what we need. And so we were doing international youth के साथ हम campaigns चला रहे थे. And I think अगर हम पाकिस्तान में if we come together, young people and experts and scientists and academics and whoever else, activists, and we work on it together, we can really put up a really good front at these COPs. So I think those are some of my takeaways. And because young लोग तो आ रहे हैं, मतलब COPs पे अब whether people like it or not, like people are showing up, whether it's with the government or without. So people are going to be there. It's best if we coordinate and come there together with all of us being on one page here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Hania, for sharing your experiences and engagement at COP. And I think we definitely need more young people like you who are there as a civil society representative, as youth representative, and doing more and more and pushing governments to do better. So yeah, let's keep this ambition alive. And with this, I'll go to our next young speaker, Iman, who is with us, who was also recently at COP in Dubai. So Iman, as a very young kid, I would say like you are essentially in that age cohort where we put you in the cohort of young children, right? So what do you think how we are doing at COPs, and how do you think how young people, especially children, are relevant in these debates, and how do you think that your role is important as a young child in pushing the governments, and how you can contribute to this whole debate?
Okay, so hello everyone, my name is Iman Danish. I'm the founder of Warriorz Pakistan, a free-to-use climate education portal for children under 15 years of age. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for Climate Forward's Pakistan invitation to share insights from the COP28. At COP28, the UAE Consensus is a positive step, addressing loss and damage, though funds may fall short. The highlight is the global agreement to phase out fossil fuels, which is a game changer. Now, as youth, let's turn these agreements into action. While climate activism is crucial, we urgently need to focus on innovation, especially in countries like Pakistan. When the funds arrive, let's just not buy technology. Let's be creators, not just consumers. It's time for youth collaboration and action. Let's generate and present solutions, breaking the cycle of dependency. We must become creators of change, not just consumers of solutions. The commitment to phase out fossil fuels is a turning point. Our role evolves from awareness to solution bringing actually. Let's capitalize on this momentum and build a culture of innovation in our communities. In Pakistan, focus on homegrown solutions for unique challenges such as renewable energy, sustainable agriculture, and resilient infrastructure. Let's collaborate with youth-led initiatives, pooling with resources for an unified impact. Networks can change knowledge and best practices. Invest in education for the next generation and foster curiosity, creativity, and critical thinking. In conclusion, COP28 sets the stage for change. As youth leaders, let's turn global agreements into action. Together, we can build a sustainable future for all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emaan, for sharing your takeaways and for call of action for everyone, especially young people. So thank you for joining us. We have Dr. Imran with us. So Dr. Imran, I would invite you to share your experiences and reflections as a climate change expert who have been in this space since years. Yeah, please, over to you.
Thank you so much, Zainab and Climate Forward Pakistan for organizing this. I'll be very brief. इसमें जब मैं कॉप पे था और एक वक्त था जब रात के वक्त जब सारी मीटिंग्स खत्म हो चुकी थी and I was lost. In fact, it was such a big place. So I was at one pavilion or another trying to find my way out, and I could not help but notice कि वहाँ पर जितने भी pavilions थे उसकी lights on थी और इतना चरागा हुआ था, and there was not a soul in sight. I could not even find somebody to get them to turn the lights off because I was like ये इतनी ज़्यादा energy की wastage हो रही है. And so when I think about it, it highlights the predicament that we are in. It exemplifies it. We like to talk big, but even the littlest of things that we can do, we aren't doing it. I mean, वहाँ पे हर तरह के experts, हर तरह के knowledgeable folks, academia से, दुनिया भर से, and yet there was wastage. Energy, water nexus की बात होती है, food security की बात होती है. What was happening, and that's the predicament that we are in, right? And that's the predicament that we've been in for the past 30 years. Science 70 की दिहाई में और 80 की दिहाई में, it was very clear. Climate change is happening. It's here. इसके अंदर जो anthropogenic effects हैं, वो इसको cause कर रहे हैं. और क्यों cause कर रहे हैं? 80% of the greenhouse gas emissions are via fossil fuels. So fossil fuel का बीच में डालना या ना डालना, that was beside the point. The fact was कि अगर आपने greenhouse gas emissions को stabilize करना है, and that is the only goal of Conference of Parties. Side events नहीं है, finances नहीं है, कुछ भी नहीं है. इसका सिर्फ एक goal है, to stabilize greenhouse gas emissions. But unfortunately, we haven't been able to do that. And अभी उसके अंदर अब fossil fuels के जिक्र आ गया है, तो perhaps in 30 years time we'll get there. But by that time we would have hit 2.5 C, right? इस वक्त जो we are on track to hit 3 degrees centigrade. So let's keep in mind कि जो भी चीजें कर रहे हैं, these baby steps, इस वक्त हमें massive leaps करनी चाहिए instead of these baby steps. I just want to come back to Pakistan. इस वक्त कल सेक्रेटरी साहब एक सेशन में थे MOCC के, उन्होंने कहा कि जी हम लोग क्लाइमेट चेंज अथॉरिटी को भी हम लोग बनाने जा रहे हैं. इट्स समथिंग दैट वाज मेंशन्ड एज पार्ट ऑफ द क्लाइमेट चेंज एक्ट एंड a lot of us have been calling for that. It's going to be finalized. There's a cabinet committee on climate change that will be developed. So the government is taking these steps, but हमें भी इन स्टेप्स को थोड़ा सा तेज करना पड़ेगा और ये देखना पड़ेगा कि किस तरीके से हम अपने जो अगले NDCs हैं, NDCs are our commitments under the Paris Agreement, which we have to revise by 2025. वो उनको रिवाइज करें और जरूर करें. ये भी हो सकता है कि ना करें, लेकिन उनको करना चाहिए ताकि हम अपने आप का एक अहाता कर सकें कि whether we are on track or not. And then, see के mitigation front पे हमने क्या करना है. The world is moving towards just energy transition, उसके लिए partnerships हो रही हैं. South Africa, Indonesia, Senegal, I mean, these countries are already, Vietnam, already moving towards that. 8 से 15 बिलियन डॉलर तक की फाइनेंसिंग इनके पास अवेलेबल हो चुकी है. लेकिन उसके लिए होमवर्क करना पड़ता है. आपके पास डेटा होना चाहिए, आपके पास साइंस होनी चाहिए, एविडेंस होना चाहिए, जिसकी बेसिस पे आप ये प्रपोजल्स बनाएं. वी हैवंट बीन डूइंग दैट. We've got a national adaptation plan, but local level adaptation planning हमें करनी है. So globally financing, अब अगले साल new commitments की बात होगी कि किस तरीके से $100 billion को हम लोग बढ़ा सकते हैं, किस तरह financing आएगी. लेकिन that may or may not materialize. We know कि loss and damage पे हम लोग बहुत पीछे हैं. At the end of the day, people are responding to their needs in the way that is possible. Even with पिछले साल जो floods हुए थे, वहां पर भी यही हालात है कि लोग कर रहे हैं और वो लोकल लेवल पे कर रहे हैं. हमें उनकी कैपेसिटी को डेवलप करना है. बाहर से अगर कोई चीज आ जाती है, उसके लिए हम लोग कैपेसिटी एनहांस कर लें तो दैट इज well and good, but at the end of the day, the responses have to be locally developed and locally led. And this is a place where we are lacking, unfortunately, right now. इस पे हमें काम करना पड़ेगा और इसी के ऊपर हमें फोकस भी करना चाहिए. I'll just stop here and I look forward to listening to everyone else here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Imran, for sharing and for reminding us that COP ka goal is to stabilize GHG emissions. And definitely, I think it's very important to align के local level action को हम किस तरह से organize कर रहे हैं to contribute to this goal. And especially you reiterated on the importance of having locally led and locally engaged response, for which we definitely need to do our own homework. With this, I think we have also another important stakeholder among us. Mr. Bilal and Anwar. So Bilal sir, if you can also share your perspective as one of the key stakeholders, reminded us the major aim and goal of COP.
Yeah, thank you very much, Zainab, and thank you to all the colleagues who previously spoke and provided their reflections and a very good comprehensive overview by Durlabh. I hope everyone can hear me properly. If you can confirm, I can proceed. Okay, I've received some responses. Yeah, I think there are several ways and several perspectives of COPs, and COPs have grown so much, and there is so much happening simultaneously at different corners of the COPs venues. So sometimes it's very difficult to really cover and just to get a meaningful kind of a perspective on what is happening and what decisions are more pertinent, more important, and how they have been adopted. I would say that as Rafay mentioned and Imran Sahab also mentioned that I think there has been some kind of a unrealistic expectation from COPs, and this is not only with Pakistan. Actually, I've seen in other countries as well, and which are considered to be the COPs considered to be the kind of a venues and the vehicles where the funding is accumulated or collected. This, of course, is not the case. So it is a grand policy making machinery on international climate policy. I think that perspective need to be very tightly held in our heads. Now, from that perspective, I think there are 2 or 3 different aspects of it. One, of course, is the science aspect of it, and the other one is finance, and the third one, of course, is more implementation, where the mitigation, adaptation, and a number of other mechanisms, of course, they come into the picture. Now, I think one, and I have been kind of going to the COPs for a long period of time. I've professionally grown up in COPs. And what I particularly seen in the last few COPs and this COP as well, I think I haven't really seen a lot of discussions being held, or the scientific observations and the new scientific findings actually finding their appropriate placings into the policy negotiations. There were two very important reports which were released by WMO and IPCC, which basically provided a very good and very comprehensive overview, scientific overview in terms of where do we stand, and if no meaningful and drastic kind of actions are not undertaken in an urgent manner, and what kind of scenarios would we should be expecting, and that's not restricted to any particular region, but across the board for all types of the countries, whether developing or non-developing countries. So what we'll be hearing and the scenarios in terms of the overshooting of 1.5-degree scenario, we've been hearing about it for quite some time already, but these two reports actually very strongly and very powerfully presented that, which were not, the resonance of it was not actually heard much at the policy negotiations, at the different policy, different agenda items negotiations. I've been to and have witnessed that in the global stock taking, as well as in Article 6, in adaptation, mitigation, and number of other agenda items. So I think this has been a missing link. Historically, what we have seen is IPCC have done a wonderful job in the last few years, and they have been kind of coming up with the different information and knowledge products for the digestion of the policymakers. So in addition to their very heavy and very scientific AR reports, they'll be coming up some very crisp kind of a policy decisions for policymakers and science for policymakers, and that has been feeding into the policy making process. But sometimes this time, actually, I felt this kind of a lacking, that it hasn't been really seen in that context. The other thing is, I think at the global stock tank, there was a lot of kind of a outcry, very justifiably and rightfully, on the transition to the phasing out of the fossil fuels, and I think there was civil society have done a tremendous job, and some of the countries from the developing side, especially from IOCs and small island developing states, they have taken a very firm stand, and which basically compelled the presidency and a small group of the countries to go back to the drawing board and rework on the text, and then we have seen the language on the transitioning out of the fossil fuels, which was in the earlier drafts, which were completely absent. But I think it basically overshadowed a number of other important aspects from the global stock taking process, and then now we see this text, which is kind of a shopping list or laundry list. But I think it kind of lacks a number of important kind of concrete measures which should have been there, because we know from the observation, we know from the estimates as well as from the science, the next global stock take is going to be taking place in 2028, and we know that we are going to be consuming out the entire global carbon budget by that point in time. So any concrete action or by that time is going to be already far too late by then. So I think that is another kind of a little bit of a disappointment which you have seen. The stock taking process haven't really done justice what it was meant to be, and it was very overly celebrated, one of the most important component element of this particular COP. So I think this is one thing. Finance, we know that loss and damage, we know that it has become operational, and that is kind of welcoming, although the commitments haven't came forward as strong, as powerful as they were expected. But I think, as they say, the devil is in the details. Now the operationalization is going to be happening, and that's how we're going to see that how this fund is going to be becoming operational. So there's still a lot of ground to be covered. Purely from Pakistan perspective, I think a couple of things. One thing is that I think the participation was a lot more meaningful and impactful from Pakistan side. You people might have also noted that the IMF was actually tasked to do a number of arrangements at the pavilion level, as well as providing the technical support to some of our negotiators as well. And we did that job, and we actually live streamed all the events from the pavilion, as well as we've been collecting some reflections from the different corners of the venue. and we also play them out and live stream them through the website. So I think we similarly we've seen the young people, the youth, and some level of participation from the provinces as well in a lot more impactful manner. And I think that is kind of a commendable job which has been done by. So that certainly has actually presented Pakistan's case in a lot more robust and strong manner as compared to the previous COPs. I think then another thing is we were not actually overly playing the kind of a victim card in this COP. That okay, yes, we had the floods last year. We are one of those a kind of a poster country which is vulnerable, which has been adversely impacted. But at the same time, it was a judicious and kind of a careful move that we also present some of the actions which Pakistan has undertaken, and how Pakistan is actually part of the global community in terms of taking the action not only on adaptation but on mitigation as well, a number of other measures as well. So I think these are some of the positive outcomes from Pakistan perspective, from Pakistan participation, which has been noted by other participants as well. I think the way this COP was held, because of the venue or the nature of the venue, I think that actually there was some kind of inherent limitation in terms of attracting the public to our pavilion, to our different events. But nevertheless, I think we were largely successful, and the experiences which we gained, I think we can build on and we can take it forward. A lot to be done. I think what is more important is the post-COP actions which are needed to be undertaken here in Pakistan. And the RMF is again actually has been tasked to take some of these actions forward, and we of course are going to be taking them forward, and we are going to be in touch with not only the relevant government departments but the other stakeholders, especially from the civil society and of course from the youth community as well. So I stop here. I'm very happy to be part of this group, and thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Bilal sir, for sharing your reflections and overview of what you observed at COP. With this, and thanks to Dr. Imran for highlighting, we also have Sohail Malik Saab, who is in the webinar. So he has worked with GCF and was also at COP. So I would request Sohail Saab if you can also share like your perspective from your professional expertise and your observations, and especially the takeaways for COP in the post-COP scenario. Please, over to you.
Thank you, Zainab. I really appreciate that you have given me this honor of kind of giving few comments, because I think after Bilal and Rafay and all the other young climate activists, I can just kind of give a few, you can say, I can sprinkle a few things over it and try to kind of put it in a perspective of going forward. I think my takeaways are from whatever has been discussed is that Pakistan is now kind of coming along in the COP and in climate finance. I mean, there is a lot of movement going on. I don't want to underplay that. There is a lot to be done on the understanding of climate finance, how it has to be accessed. I mean, there are a lot of things which Pakistan needs to do from its systems, procedures, policies. But it doesn't mean that we are not doing it. We are doing it at our own pace, and hopefully we'll get there. But the most important point which I take is that I see the youth, I see the civil society. The only thing I miss out is the private sector, because I mean, climate action remains incomplete, or the acceleration or getting to the ambition, it remains incomplete if the private sector is not really brought into this whole discourse. So, I mean, I'm just pointing out few things which need to be taken forward as we move forward. I like that the thing that we need to come out of this. I mean, I'm going to make a very strong quote. Is presenting ourselves as a damsel in distress. I mean, we need to really come in as a world player, as a global player. These COPs, they provide an opportunity, as said by earlier speakers, that you become a part of the international dialogue. You become a part of international diplomacy. You become a part of international decision making when it comes to crafting the future of climate and other actions. So I think that Pakistan needs to, Pakistan has been there. We had the G77 chair, and we really used it very well. I must appreciate the whole coming together on that account. But we should not lose the momentum. I really appreciate you guys really coming and reflecting on the thing. But I think most important thing is that we now have to start preparing for COP29. It is now. We should start planning, discussing, and all our different stakeholders need to start working towards COP29. How does Pakistan want to be there in that COP29? In what way we want to be there? How we can bring the maximum for our country in the process? It's not that from saying that we need billions and billions of dollars, but what we want to be there is a part of the dialogue and the discourse. That is one part of it. The other part of it is that the climate finance, I think everyone understands that there is a lot of interest now taking place in different government line agencies. We see a lot of climate finance units being established. But all these things need a discourse among the stakeholders, that how does climate finance or the understanding of climate finance, how it can be accessed, and how Pakistan can maximize on the climate financing available. Because this availability will not be there for a long time. We have this limited window where we need to first understand, comprehend how to access it, and then to access it through our systems, procedures, policies, through consultations, stakeholder participation, bringing in private sector. So I'm trying to kind of cover so many things in one go, because I'm not ready, or I don't have any presentation or anything in mind, but I'm just reflecting on how we need to take forward some of our things which we should be taking forward. And I really appreciate that these kind of your initiatives, the youth initiative, is very important, that it keeps us, the old guards, on our toes to really bring in the new thinking, the new processes, the innovation, the all those things which are required to address the climate challenges. So I have a lot of things to say, but I just want to say that let's start planning for COP29, and let's start working towards that. So develop a roadmap now, not a month or weeks before the event. We chart the path now, as together, help the government, help the private sector, help the youth, help everyone to understand what the issues are and how do we want to pursue them till November next year in Baku, inshallah. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your views. I think these are really insightful. And you mentioned about the role of private sector, which actually drives more than 50% of climate action. So definitely, I think there is a need to engage and meaningfully engage with the private sector and see how we can synergize our efforts in the national context. So thank you so much for your comments. With this, I would quickly invite Jawad to share briefly about the CFP engagements at COP. So Jawad, over to you. You have 5 minutes before we go to the next speakers. Yeah, thanks.
You're on mute.
Okay, thank you, sir, for highlighting that. Can you now see the screen? All right. So let me just start from here, not just as a young person or youth, but also as an organization. It was like very first time that young people have been to COP as an organization. So what we have achieved in all these days, I want to show everyone how we, being successful as a very new organization. So we made global highlights, as you can see on the screen, the young voices speaking up for Pakistan at COP. And
sorry, Jawad, for interrupting. Can you put it on the slideshow, because I think not everyone will be able to read.
It is already on the slideshow, I guess. Wait.
Probably it's your internet connection that.
Now?
It's still not on
Jawad,
the
you would have to reshare. Jawad, you just share the entire screen and then go in the slideshow.
Sure.
Reshare, share the entire screen.
Okay, it should be now full screen, right?
Yeah,
okay.
It's good now.
Great. So let me just move on. And as a Climate for Pakistan, we just being founded in July 2023. It's not even the 6 months of our establishment, but what we have done as an organization is when we came into being in July, we had our internal organization, groundwork and everything. And from like October to November, we consulted with the local youth in local communities, and we have come up with their voices as a collective voice to be presented at COP. So even before going to COP, we trained young people who were there at COP28 with their government delegation as well as another cohort. So you can see on screen, we had the experts like Farooq Khan from Foreign Office as well, and we trained like more than 100 young person, including those 8 that were there at COP, in partnership with Youth Negotiators Academy as well as with Youth for Climate Pakistan, which is a youth wing of Ministry of Climate Change. And we also organized many sessions in different cities of Pakistan to again consult with young people, with the local communities, how they think about it. And then this was our presence in the Blue Zone. We had sessions hosted, co-hosted, co-organized. We participated as panelists. We also nominated speakers in other pavilions as well. So this was just in the Blue Zone that we had session at Dominican Republic Pavilion, Pakistan's Pavilion, Nepalese Pavilion, Sri Lankan Pavilion, Children Youth Pavilion, Climate Life Pavilion. So I think as an organization, this was like a very good start going to COP, as well as to highlight the case of Pakistan and to represent as young people. And we also engaged Pakistani youth in a lot of discussions. This you can see from the green zone. We organized all these sessions with international organizations as well as with the local organizations, and we gave this chance to young people to come on the stage and talk about it. So this was like very first time Pakistani young people were representing their local communities, and we'll take this forward for COP29, where we'll ensure that the local communities are represented in a much more organized manner. And then we were also invited by the host country in some of their events. So you can see on the screen. So one of them is the Youth Sustainability Parliament, and I was representing Pakistan over there, and we won as well. So moving on, this is another like climate innovation zone is totally out of green zone and blue zone, and this is like a space for the host country to organize different sessions as well as the international organization. So we also were there and part of discussion. So this was all about how innovation and sustainability can be made part of the education system throughout the world. And then there were also some exclusive invitations. For example, we were invited at Al Gore's private reception as a climate reality leaders. And we were there. We met him last year as well. And I remember we asked about the floods and loss and damage funding from him. And he was very advocate of Pakistan, even at COP27. In Egypt. And you can see my picture with the Robert. Robert is the climate justice father. And then we were invited. कोई बात नहीं सर, कर सकते हैं, सबका अपना अपना ओपिनियन होता है. तो जस्ट मूविंग ऑन, एक और पिक्चर है, आप देख सकते हैं, ये हमें डच जो मिनिस्टर से उन्होंने इनवाइट किया था एज ए क्लाइमेट फॉर पाकिस्तान, एंड उन्होंने इस चीज के ऊपर भी हमारे साथ डिस्कशन की कि कैसे वो पाकिस्तान के अंदर कोलैबोरेशंस को ला सकते हैं और ग्रीन ट्रांजिशन के अंदर पाकिस्तान की सपोर्ट कर सकते हैं. सो यू कैन सी कि एज ए क्लाइमेट फॉर पाकिस्तान वी आर also speaking up for Pakistan in different avenues, and we were engaged with media, with Pakistani media all across. So if you can see, we were live on PTV World, Geo News, Airway News, Tribune, Express Tribune, and Dawn. We were mentioned over there as climate for Pakistan. And then not just the local media, but also the global highlights. We made global highlights. The third poll, they featured us. Also the Yahoo and Taiwan News. Taiwan was like first time this much, active at COP, and they also reported about our work at COP. And then Asia News Network and all over there. So yeah, so if I conclude it, so there is one very special news that we have been advocating for Youth Advisory Board under the World Bank as well, because like the other UN organizations, they have now youth constituencies and youth organizations, but under the World Bank there is no incorporation of youth voices or how they can be made part of the decision-making process. So we advocated for this, and gladly they have accepted our proposal. So this was like very tangible success for Climate for Pakistan as well, that there is going to be a youth advisory board on sustainable development for South Asia. And we engaged all generations. This is very important. You can even now see Emaan in our discussion. So we want to ensure that children, young people, and millennials all should be there to protect this planet. And then we led many global discussions. We amplified young voices from Pakistan, and we were very successful in our advocacy as an organization. We made global highlights as well as we engaged with local press and media. And there was also like very important engagement. Like this was like very first time we tested the case of 1 day access badge to Blue Zone, and it was successful. So that was also one of the great experiment, and we'll take this forward for next year. So this is like my final call on behalf of Climate for Pakistan, that we want to work for youth, by youth, with youth, but across generations. So we'll open our call for collaboration and partnership, not just for the COP. So this should not be the image of Climate for Pakistan to be just for COP. We want to work with local communities and for the real climate action in Pakistan. So I'll stop here. Thank you so much. Over to you, Zainab, again.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jawad, for the brief presentation. So just to reiterate again, this was first time we were like testing our abilities of how we can engage and provide visibility to Pakistani youth, as well as share what essentially we are doing at CFP. But we would definitely love to hear more from you as young people, as well as the experts who are there. Because I think at CFP, we do focus on the intergenerational collaboration. So we would love to hear more from the experts and see how we can empower and best present our case at COPs, and even when it comes to local engagement, because work actually happens in the grassroots communities, and COPs are just avenues. Anyways, I think with this, we can move on to the second part of the session, where we have another line of amazing speakers. In this session, we have Tauqeer Sheikh, who is a climate change specialist. We have Dawar Hamid with us, who is a co-founder of Climate Action Pakistan. We have Fatemah Sultan with us, who is a board member of Climate Action Center, Karachi. We have Irfanullah Afridi, who is a founder of Sustainability Week Pakistan, and Kamran Ali, who is co-founder of Fridays for Future Pakistan. So I think this is another amazing cohort of speakers, including young activists, advocates, and experts in the climate change space. So with this, I would request Tauqeer Sheikh Saab, if you are with us, please share your views, including like reflections and takeaways from COP, and how we can mobilize action in the local level.
ज़ैनब, बहुत शुक्रिया मुझे मौका देने का, और मुझे इतनी खुशी हो रही है कि 55-60 के करीब लोग जो है ना उन्होंने डायल किया हुआ है। इट शोज कि जी किस तरह से हमारी क्लाइमेट चेंज की कम्युनिटी ग्रो कर रही है, और पर्टिकुलरली इसकी रूट जो है एक नई जनरेशन में जो आ रही है। जो 2 या 3 बातें मेरे कलीग्स ने की हैं, मैं उनको एक हिसाब से रिपीट करना चाहता हूँ। पहली बात यह है कि चूंकि काफी सारे यंग लोग हैं, मैं अपने आप को कुछ रिपीट करने की इजाजत दीजिए कि पहली बात यह है कि पाकिस्तान इज नॉट द मोस्ट वल्नरेबल कंट्री। ये एक बोगस नॉन साइंटिफिक बात है कि पाकिस्तान इज द मोस्ट वल्नरेबल कंट्री। इसके कहने का मतलब ये होगा कि वी आर कंडेम्ड एंड वी आर नॉट एबल टू डू एनीथिंग, वी जस्ट एक्सेप्ट कि वी आर वेरी वल्नरेबल। दुनिया की हर कम्युनिटी जो है बहुत वल्नरेबल, और बहुत सारे हमसे ज्यादा वल्नरेबल होंगे। हम वी आर द लीस्ट प्रिपेयर्ड कंट्री। हम जब भी करते हैं, हम अपने आप को बड़ा मजलूम के तौर पे पेश करते हैं। हम ये नहीं कहते कि जितनी प्रिपरेशन हम कर सकते थे हमने नहीं की है। तो वी आर द लीस्ट प्रिपेयर्ड, वी आर नॉट द मोस्ट वल्नरेबल कंट्री। दूसरी बात यह है कि हम कहते हैं कि हम विक्टिम हैं, हमारे एमिशन जो है वो 1% से भी कम है। ये भी एक बोगस और गलत नॉन साइंटिफिक बात है। 100 से ज्यादा ममालिक ऐसे हैं जिनके एमिशन हमसे भी कम है, वो भी विक्टिम है। और 3-4 बड़े बड़े ममालिक मैं आपको नाम लेके बताता हूँ, उनके एमिशन पाकिस्तान की तरह हैं जैसे सारे नॉर्डिक कंट्रीज। नीदरलैंड्स का किसी ने भी नाम लिया था, जो बाकी भी नॉर्डिक कंट्रीज हैं वो, या फॉर दैट मैटर इवन ऑस्ट्रेलिया, उनके एमिशन हमसे बहुत कंपेरेबल हैं। बहुत ज़्यादा नहीं है हमसे, मगर उनकी जो एनर्जी की एफिशिएंसी है, प्रोडक्टिविटी है पर यूनिट ऑफ एनर्जी, हमसे कई गुना ज़्यादा है। तो हमें ये कहने की बजाय कि हमारे एमिशन बहुत कम है, हमें ये कहना चाहिए वी आर वन ऑफ द मोस्ट इनफिशिएंट, एनर्जी इनफिशिएंट कंट्रीज, जो इतनी एनर्जी कंज्यूम करते हैं मगर उसके मुताबिक इकोनॉमी में हम प्रोडक्टिविटी नहीं लेकर आ सकते, डेवलपमेंट नहीं ले सकते, और लोगों को पॉवर्टी के लिए लिफ्ट नहीं कर सकते, उनको वल्नरेबिलिटी में छोड़ देते हैं। सिर्फ एक चीज मैं और कहना चाहता हूँ, फिर मैं आपसे इजाजत लेता हूँ, कि ना तो हम मोस्ट वल्नरेबल हैं और ना हम विक्टिम हैं। तीसरी बात यह कि देयर इज नो क्लाइमेट जस्टिस अनलेस देयर इज डोमेस्टिक क्लाइमेट जस्टिस। मेरा इस्लामाबाद में घर है, मेरे घर में तो बड़ी बारिशें होती हैं, कोई नुकसान नहीं होता। बलूचिस्तान में क्यों होता है, इंटीरियर सिंध में क्यों होता है, सदर्न पंजाब में क्यों होता है? वो इसलिए होता है कि हमने वल्नरेबिलिटी को कम करने के लिए इन्वेस्टमेंट्स नहीं की। हमने गरीब गुरबा को हाउसिंग, हमने जोनिंग नहीं की जिसमें कि उनको सेफ जगहों पे अपने घर बना सकें। हमने उनको इंजीनियरिंग स्टैंडर्ड्स नहीं दिए कि उनके घर जो है और उनका इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर जो है वो रिजिलियंट हो सके। हमने उनको इंश्योरेंस स्कीम नहीं दी कि वो अपनी क्रॉप्स को या अपने लाइफ स्टॉक को इंश्योर कर सकें। हमारे यहाँ एलीट कैप्चर इतना ज़्यादा है कि मोर देन 60% ऑफ पॉपुलेशन को हमने वल्नरेबिलिटी में छोड़ा हुआ है। तो ये डोमेस्टिक क्लाइमेट जस्टिस की एब्सेंस है जिसकी वजह से हमारा इतना नुकसान होता है। वो इसलिए नहीं होता कि हम कुछ ज्यादा वल्नरेबल हैं। यस, पाकिस्तान के बाज़ एरियाज जो हैं, जैसे हमारे यहाँ ग्लोव्स होते हैं, जैसे हमारा कोस्टल लेवल में सी वाटर इंट्रूजन है, जैसे हमारे कोहे सुलेमान के जो डाउनस्ट्रीम एरियाज आते हैं वहाँ पे फ्लैश फ्लडिंग होती है। देयर आर मेनी अदर चैलेंजेस दैट वी हैव। मगर हमसे किसने कहा था कि हम दरियाओं के रास्तों में अपने घर बनाने शुरू कर दें? ये क्लाइमेट वल्नरेबिलिटी तो नहीं है, ये तो बैड गवर्नेंस है। तो मैं इस चीज पे अपने आप को कंक्लूड करना चाहता हूं कि बहुत सारी बोगस नॉन साइंटिफिक बातों को हम असल इशू से डिस्ट्रैक्ट करने के बजाय क्लाइमेट चेंज को ब्लेम करना शुरू कर देते हैं। क्लाइमेट चेंज इज इंडीड अ वेरी सीरियस इशू एंड आई एम सो हैप्पी कि सो मेनी पीपल आर वेरी कंसर्न्ड अबाउट इट। आई थिंक वी नीड टू मेक श्योर कि हम गैर साइंसी या नॉन साइंटिफिक बातों को इंटरनेशनल फोरम के ऊपर ना हाईलाइट करें। हमारी एम्बेरसमेंट होती है, लोग समझते हैं कि हम हर किसी को बेवकूफ़ बनाने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं। वी नीड टू बी बेटर इन्फॉर्म्ड एंड हमारी ओपिनियन जो है वो साइंस पे बेस करनी चाहिए, प्रोपेगेंडा पे बेस नहीं करनी चाहिए। बहुत शुक्रिया।
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing some harsh truths and for bringing our attention to energy inefficiency. Or I think जो आपने domestic justice की बात की, that's very true. And I think there is no climate justice without social justice, and we definitely need to see it from that intersectional perspective. So yeah, anyways, thank you for sharing your experiences and giving that reality check. With this, we'll move on to our next speaker, Dawar Hamid, who's co-founder of Climate Action Pakistan. So Dawar, if you can share your experiences at COP and how do you see Pakistan moving forward in lead up to COP29 and post-COP scenario?
बहुत शुक्रिया Zainab for having me, and very nice to hear thoughts, both especially from Emaan and our younger colleagues and experienced colleagues as well. I think I've been partly based out of Pakistan for the past year, and especially interacted a lot with the community in Emirates and gotten a chance to interact with the Indian community. मेरे लिए कॉप का मकसद आने का और विजिट करने का ये नहीं था कि नेगोशिएशंस में होता क्या है, हम क्या अचीव कर लेते हैं, पाकिस्तान को कितने पैसे मिलते हैं, डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज को कितने पैसे मिलते हैं. आई थिंक जो सबसे बड़ा मकसद था वो देखना था कि बाकी दुनिया कर क्या रही है. हम लोग अपने बाल खुजालने बैठ जाते कि इसका करें क्या, पैसे कहाँ से आएंगे, हाउ डू वी रिजॉल्व लॉट ऑफ दीज थिंग्स. एक्टिविस्ट डिमांड के चाहिए होना चाहिए, गवर्नमेंट को पता नहीं कहाँ से आएंगे पैसे. And there's a whole lot of Pakistan, at least there's a crazy amount of need of finances, and all federal and provincial governments are running around कि कहीं से पैसे आ जाएं. तो इस वजह से climate finance is also a topic in country. लेकिन मैंने जो बात notice की, I was here and एक दिन randomly tram में I ran into this associate minister for environment, Egyptian, and he was, I think, not more than 36, 37 years in age, and he started talking to me. और उससे बात करते पता चला कि इनकी negotiating team में now Egypt's population is less than Pakistan's. इसी तरह Arab countries की is quite less than Pakistan. Saudi की कम है, इन सब की कम है. Their delegations were much bigger, and the youth representation in those delegations was at least 1/4. And to the extent that Emiratis and Saudis, they decided that it should be balanced in gender terms as well. So हमारे यहाँ अभी तक हमें ये नहीं देखा जा रहा कि आप लोग whatever you are having in your discussions, आपके हमारा एक किस्म का स्ट्रक्चर भी ऐसा बना हुआ है साल से कि फॉरेन पॉलिसी होती थी, डिफेंस पॉलिसी होती थी, एग्रीकल्चर, फूड, इरिगेशन, उसमें हमने कहा था कि like you have to go through a certain process of afsarshahi or फिर you get the knowledge. But climate is very different. इसकी dynamic, science gets changed every other month. कोई update आ रहा है, and young people are the ones who have the capacity to absorb that information and act on it. बाकियों के पास नहीं है. I have interacted with a lot of people. वो कहते हैं कि यार छोटा स्लाइड शो बना दो, pointers बना दो, इस तरह की बातें चाहते हैं करके they get their information. They hardly bother going into the details of stuff. So yeah, I noticed a lot in literally every हमारे neighbors के जो representatives थे, उनका delegation बहुत बड़ा था. They had a lot of people from the private sector जो government themselves had brought. So वो I noticed कि पाकिस्तान में उस तरह कोई very little representation from the private sector. और private sector का मुराद है non-profits, for-profits, businesses कि वो क्या कर रहे हैं. Please come and show the world कि आप क्या कर रहे हो. We had one startup which had a display in the startup village. As such, it's they made an effort and came themselves, or काफी उनका भी they showed that Pakistan में कुछ हो रहा है. But at the same time, I really want to not call out the government directly, but also make them realize that you cannot tell the world that हमें पैसे चाहिए without going and showing that you're serious enough to be doing something about it. हमें बार literally a lot of the countries that were there, they already have solid projects in pipeline, and they had people talking to them about it कि approval statuses चल रहे हैं, सब कुछ हो रहा है. And we had very little to show. हम एक दो चीजें लेकर गए हैं. Those things have been in discussion for the past 5-6 years. So in the meantime, जो सब कुछ हुआ है post floods, are we just sitting ducks के और इसका दोबारा इंतजार करेंगे दोबारा कुछ आए? So in that sense, as individuals, we'll keep on, doing our work, and climate में हम research करते रहेंगे. We'll keep on building reports. लेकिन जो हमें देखना है उन चीज़ों का कि implement कैसे होती हैं, what sort of interventions that we can bring, people who are going to make those, उनका बहुत बड़ा गैप है हमारे यहाँ. आई कीप ऑन सेइंग कि सबसे बड़ी एग्जांपल हमारे पास है. अभी अली तौकीर शेख साहब ने भी पॉइंट आउट किया कि हम लोग लोकल लेवल पे कौन सा क्लाइमेट जस्टिस दे रहे हैं. व्हाई इज इट द फैक्ट दैट यू हैव मैसिव डिप्लॉयमेंट ऑफ कैपिटल in 1 or 2 cities for आप ब्रिजेस बना रहे हो, आप अंडरपासेस बनाई जा रहे हो, सिग्नल फ्री कॉरिडोर्स बना रहे हो, and it's billions of rupees. उन billions of rupees से you could have put up a public transit project, उसके carbon credits आप बनाते और बेचते, पूरी दुनिया ही कर रही है. Thailand just did the same thing. हमने decide किया कि हम again will, and all of this is being noticed by your development partners. ऐसा नहीं कि उन्हें पता नहीं चल रहा. They talk about it, हमसे discussions में होती हैं बातें कि ये priorities जो political economy पाकिस्तान की चल रही है, which is again geared to directing all resources to the top 5% elite of Pakistan. उसको अगर हम लोग दोबारा climate finance भी दे दें somehow, and it enters the provincial revenues and federal revenues, how do we make sure कि वो government integrity exists करती है कि वो फिर wastage पे नहीं जाएगा? So ये वाली बात है सब as a Pakistani, this is very concerning for me. इसमें this is one of those sort of resources कि आपने waste कर दी तो आपको दोबारा मिलेगी नहीं, और दूसरी waste करने के बाद जो उसका negative externality आएगी वो आपकी मुल्क और आपके लोग बर्दाश्त नहीं कर सकते. ये ऐसा नहीं है कि IMF की लोन आई और आपने waste कर दिया तो बाद में चलें you have more years and you get more loans. इसके बाद you don't have more years. आपकी pollution will keep on getting worse, you'll have heat waves, you'll have floods, और उसके बाद क्या होगा, जानों का नुकसान शुरू हो जाएगा, public health impact शुरू हो जाएगा, migration शुरू हो जाएंगी, शहरों में already burden शुरू हो गया है. So इन सब चीज़ों का there's need to be serious legislation. I don't agree with the idea that we have to do it at our own slow pace और हम आराम से करें. आराम से करने का मतलब यही है कि we're going to breach all the targets that are set, and we've accepted कि हाँ breach तो हो रही है. तो this is something that maybe global north can say कि अच्छा breach हो रही है, हमें इतना impact नहीं आ रहा. हम लोग नहीं कह सकते. We've already seen कि हम पे बहुत ज़्यादा impact आ रहा है because number one we're underprepared, and number two we're simply people living in a geography which is dependent on certain weather systems and a river system जिस पे indeed acute changes हो रहे हैं. वो acute changes के लिए हमारे पास preparation नहीं है, and again हम लोग वो डिले का या अपने पेस पे काम नहीं करने. हमने we have to do a lot more faster. We have to get people together कि आप काम शाम करो and like make it a reality that this is something that youth voices, especially who will be living in this country, are going to be contributing to. So it's that's from my perspective as both a professional as an activist, क्योंकि this field now requires your expertise, but a lot of your activism as well. It can't be simply that you put them aside. A lot of it has become political because हमारे लिए there will locally at least the investment direction. I see that there are certain actors which direct investment in directions which are completely unneeded for a country like ours. So उनके खिलाफ बोलना भी ज़रूरी है as an activist, and then you have to produce the necessary information for institutions and research कि ये काम इस तरह किया जाए तो बहुत बेहतर है. And again that will feed into the gloom. When you go to GCF, you go to LND के या ये हुआ है हमारे पास, this is what happened and this is how we're going to utilize the fund. Otherwise we'll keep on coming back every year to the COP and afterwards के we didn't have project pipelines, we didn't have necessary उसके integrity frameworks नहीं बने हुए थे तो हमें पैसे नहीं मिले. ये तो हम year after year करते रहेंगे. तो यही है कि we need to see a lot more हम लोग we keep on pushing for youth participation, but वो again there is the hindrance के after you put your step in the door आपको वो seat कौन देगा. Seat देने वाला काम, of course a lot of people have been asking politely. CFP as an organization, our organization, we ask these things politely, but we already see voices from Balochistan, from Sindh, from Gilgit-Baltistan that those people have run out of time, so they're not asking politely anymore. So उस तरह ही आहिस्ता आहिस्ता ये बढ़ता जाएगा, और वो उस साइड पे अब then will be realization कि now these activists were right, इनका बात सुननी चाहिए, और finally we might see then this translating into political action as well. So that's it from me, and we were having this discussion earlier in another group as well. We have candidates who are coming from manifestos with climate action. So I hope in the next 5 years, a couple of us, more people get involved and drive this action in parliament and policy making as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tawar, for sharing such insightful comments from your end. And definitely we need integrity and accountability to make sure that what we are doing is relevant and we are answerable for that. And we definitely need a holistic approach where we take into account the comments of activists, advocates, or be it like climate professionals, because all the stakeholders do matter. So yeah, with this, we'll move on to the next speaker, Fatemah Sultan, who is board member of Climate Action Center, Karachi. Fatemah, over to you.
Hello. Sorry to interrupt, but I had a question regarding the previous speaker, Sir Sheikh. Can I put in the question?
Yeah, I think you can take questions at the end.
No, it's not actually the question.
We have just two speakers
Actually, sorry, it's actually not a question, but it's an objection.
Maybe you can write in the chat, please, because I think our next speakers are waiting, and if you don't mind.
Hi, Zainab. Thank you so much for giving me the floor. Just to highlight some of my work, I am here on behalf of CAC. It's the Karachi Climate Action Center, and we've just opened up in the last few months. And I've been a climate justice activist for the last 5 years. I'm 20 years old, and I particularly work in like grassroots and international climate spaces as like a MAPA member, so from the most affected peoples and areas. And I've been to 2 COPs, and I've been following a lot of policy work around Pakistan. And I feel like one of the biggest problems and hindrances in the entire like climate sphere is that in Pakistan, we do paint ourselves as victims a lot in this. But I think a lot of the problems that we face industrially and through infrastructure have been a lot to do with politics. And we need, and because the country is currently suffering from a lot of brain drain and a lot of academic put out, and people aren't pooling in their resources to actually like fix infrastructure and fix politics, it's not, nothing is viable. Nothing viable is happening. We keep talking about tree plantations and these small minuscule projects while letting these big vacuums continue to grow and grow. And while I completely think the essence of like change comes from grassroots activism, I think grassroots activists push for action and implementation and change. And rarely in these COP spaces do governments actually listen, including our own. And I think they also frame it to only be an environmental crisis and not see it as a human-led crisis or like a gender issue or a land issue or like a water issue. And my biggest problem also now is I feel like Pakistanis have forgotten, wo bhool gaye wo kahan se aaye hain. I think we've forgotten that the creation of the nation was on the basis of civil justice and civil reform and like shedding ourselves from colonial rule. And if we carried those principles and the sacrifices our families have made to give this country like and give us like a platform for a country, we would be able to make incremental amounts of change to actually positively impact the country. I think something I also suffer with a lot, and I think a lot of people, is we are grateful for the land we have in Pakistan, but there's a lot of like, there's so many problems that we forget कि हम कहाँ से आए हैं, and what is our history, what is our root, and where do we come from. And I think because of that, we are struggling to create incremental change. But I think if we can learn from the history of 75 years ago also, there's so much grassroots collective change in our colonial history that we can implement to also tackle the climate crisis in Pakistan. And CAC, which is like the Karachi like Action Center, is actually a physical space where we want to work on and with urban communities that are affected and rural communities that are most affected by climate change, because nothing is going to change if the government keeps going year after year to COP with these empty promises and empty projects and empty pipelines. If there's no involvement on the grassroots level, if there's no implementation, like I have been in and out of these spaces now for like 5 years. This is my 6th year now, and I'm only like a college student, and I find it incredibly hard to talk to the government even on involving in change, because if you say anything about politics, you're instantly seen as a threat, and it's very frustrating. But I don't think people should give up. I think the more civilians are interested in engaging with this subject, the tides of change will have to emerge. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it.
Thank you so much, Fatemah, for sharing your views. I think definitely we need an inclusive approach where we give that right to all the stakeholders to speak, be it activists, advocates, and definitely as young people, this is what we are pushing for. With this, we'll move on to our next youth speaker, Irfan Afridi, who's founder of Sustainability Week Pakistan. So, Irfan, you have been in the COP space in general and also doing amazing work with the grassroots communities. So, if you can share your experiences of how it has evolved and transformed your experiences, and what do you think moving forward? How does the scenario looks for Pakistan?
Thank you so much, Zainab, Hafiz, and all the team for your amazing work in bringing us all together. Sorry, I will keep my camera off due to weak internet. So Zainab, if you give me a signal, you can hear me properly. Okay, so cool. I will try to be precise. Yeah, because we are running out of time. So yeah. Just sharing my experience in the negotiation I follow. So actually, during the COP in Dubai, my focus was more on loss and damage fund, Santiago network on loss and damage and global goal and adaptation. And maybe I will not try to deep dive and see why this negotiation is important, especially for people from Pakistan, but also in general. And what are the opportunity coming up for the young people, but also for Pakistan. So talking about loss and damage, I think so. It's one of the a big success of this COP, where on the first day they operationalized the loss and damage fund, where I think so it's not usual, because usually in COPs it's like a heated debate, and after heated debate, party decide on things. But at the first day of the COP, they operationalized. So it was actually a very good signal, that the Dubai and the presidency were, the Emirates and the presidency were giving to the rest of the world. But now the question is, okay, we've operationalized the fund, so what are the next steps? So there was a pledges. So pledges are always pledges. But I think so it's really important to see how much money is actually going into it. So it's the time to fill the fund. And also when there's fund coming, so first we need to see how much fund is needed, especially in different countries like Pakistan for response, recovery, and development activities. But how those fund and those money should be mobilized. And many previous speaker mentioned about the transparency and accountability. I think so it's really, really important, especially if you asking the donor. So there should be a transparency and accountability lens in all of our project. And unfortunately in Pakistan, I think so we really need to work on accountability and transparency, because funding is coming, but we don't really know how the funding and where the funding actually being spent. So it's really important. And also for all the young people who are here, we really also need to make sure and see where the money is coming from, where the money is going, and how the money are being spent on the ground, to see that either the money are going into those people who really need it. So I think this is really important. We really need to make sure to keep eyes on it, how things are coming, how things will evolve in coming days, and especially in Pakistan, when funds are coming. So I think so it's also a responsibility to keep eyes on it. Second thing is Santiago network on loss and damage. I think it's also another success. So briefly talking about Santiago network on loss and damage, it is actually somehow the mechanism to support developing countries to take a loss and damage, and their focus is more technical aspect. So they're not providing fund, but they will provide technical aspect, like for example, doing risk assessment, vulnerability assessment, and doing different projections. So I think so it's also key area for Pakistan to get benefit out of it, because we really need to do more work on a risk and vulnerability assessment, and also to do the projection in the country on the national level, but also on the provincial level, how the climate will look like in coming years in Pakistan. It's really important that the country need to jump in, especially Pakistan need to jump in and to take benefit as much as possible. And another one, GGA, Global Goal and Adaptation. So maybe briefly talk about what GGA is. The GGA is a collective commitment under Paris Agreement, which aim for adaptive capacity, strengthening resilience, and reducing vulnerability in different countries. So it was also a heated negotiation on GGA. So developed countries were not in favor to have clear metrics and indexes in the GGA framework. So I think so this was a crucial discussion, not just in Dubai, but also in Bonn when we were this year. There was a heated debate, and usually developed country, they block developing country proposal to have a clear indicator and metrics in GGA, Global Goal Adaptation Framework, where we can see which country is making progress on on adaptation in their country. But also it's really important, and what actually we're pushing for, to have a clear metrics and indexes for youth engagement in GGF framework. So we are trying to have one or two at least indicator in GGF framework where we can make sure that a different country are make sure to have their young people engage in the different project and different work they are doing. And it's same for Pakistan and also for all the young people who are here. I think it's really important that we push for at least to tell our country delegation that why is it important that there should be an indicator in GGA on youth engagement. Before wind up, I think so, and just a recommendation. I can see a lot of young people here, so there may be some young people who can't make it to the COP. So I think so. It's wonderful if you're in COP, but if you can't make it, I think so still you can move the mountain. You need to be really involved in the locally led adaptation. The work you are doing in the group. And the grassroots level, I think so this is the key. We talk about bottom-up approach. So this is the crucial. We really need to get involved on the community level, and then how you can make changes. And another recommendation, I think so it's really important, and also I think so it's for our ministry, maybe for the government to have more youth in their delegation. Unfortunately, I didn't see many young people in Pakistan delegation to COP. So I think so. And why youth? Because we all know 60% of population is the age bracket between 15 to 30. So it's really important that bring you to the people, because young people are the innovator, and especially youth in Pakistan, they're having so many nice ideas. So it's really important to have young people, being part of the delegation. And also, creative criticism. I think so we really need to work on it. So if there is a creative criticism, we really need to accept it. So we shouldn't take it personal. Our young people need to be part of different youth network, which Zainab, your organization doing a great job in the country, but also Young and other different youth network. I think so. It's really, really important for the young people. They should jump in. They should be the part of this negotiation and in this discussions. How they can share their ideas. And to have a more platform where the young people can bring their ideas in innovation. And last, I think we young people need to be innovative, and not just criticize what our politicians are doing or what the different ministry department has doing, but we also need to come up with some innovation. When they ask, okay, what's the plan? So then we can put the plan on the table. That's all from my side. And once again, thank you so much, Zainab, for all the amazing work. And feel free if anyone of you are interested to know more about our organization, our work. So I will put the link in the chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Irfan, for sharing your views, and also at the end for your recommendations for young people, and also the criticism part that you highlighted. I hope that our stakeholders take it forward. So with this, we'll move on to our last speaker for today, who is Kamran Ali, co-founder of Fridays for Future Pakistan. So Kamran, over to you.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Sorry, I have some internet issues, so I will continue with audio. So basically, I will say, जो अली शेख साहब ने कहा कि there is something हम lack कर रहे हैं, कि हम जिस तरह की nation हमें, कि हमने कुछ चीज़ें सेट की हुई है या कुछ नहीं की हुई है, लेकिन चीज़ें ये कि हमने बहुत सारी चीज़ों को इग्नोर किया हुआ है. लेकिन सर ने कहा कि like mountains communities, like Balochistan, like other communities, वो सफ़र कर रही हैं क्योंकि हमने कुछ चीज़ें हमने इग्नोर की हुई है. हमने अपने डेवलपमेंट, जिस राफे सर ने कहा कि हमने पुल बना के पैसे पुल पे लगाए हुए हैं, लेकिन हमने वो चीज़ें सेट नहीं की जो हमारे प्रायोरिटीज़ पे हैं. लेकिन क्लाइमेट चेंज जो हम चाहते हैं कि हमारे बहुत सारे कम्युनिटीज़, यानी माउंटेन्स कम्युनिटी से लेके जीबी से लेके कैपिके से लेकर बलूचिस्तान से लेकर वो लोग कैसे सफ़र कर रहे हैं, उनकी रिप्रेजेंटेशन नेशनल या इंटरनेशनल लेवल पे कैसे होती है, वो कैसे आते हैं, वो हम देखते नहीं है. हमारे पास ये है कि जो एलीट सिस्टम है, जो जिनकी फिक्स 4-5 लोग है, जो एलीट सिस्टम जो हर जगह में जाकर रिप्रेजेंटेशन देते हैं पाकिस्तान का, ठीक है. जो आप चाहे नेशनल लेवल पे जाएँ, चाहे टेलीविजन पे जाएँ, चाहे अपने पैनल डिस्कशन पे जाएँ, वो लोग होंगे जो 5 के 6 लोग होंगे जो वो मैं उनको कहता हूँ सो कॉल्ड एक्टिविस्ट्स, ठीक है. क्योंकि वो जाएंगे, वो जाके एक्टिविज्म करेंगे, वो जाके दिखाएंगे कि हम सफ़र कर रहे हैं, हम ये करें, बट दे नेवर टॉक अबाउट कि बलूचिस्तान में क्या सफ़र कर रहे हैं क्लाइमेट चेंज से. वो नेवर टॉक करेंगे कभी कि जीबी में क्या सफ़र हो रहा है क्लाइमेट चेंज से. वो कभी ये नहीं कहेंगे ग्लेशियर से क्या कितने गाँव इस टाइम चले गए, कितने लोग सफ़र हो रहे हैं, कितने वो चीज़ें हम करें। एलीट सिस्टम जो है हमारे, जो कल्चर जो एलीट कल्चर है वो कैसे ख़त्म होगा। एज इमरान सर से मेरी डिस्कशन होती है, जवाद भी जानते हैं कि एलीट सिस्टम है जो हमारा जो कल्चर है, जो एलीट कल्चर है उसको ख़त्म करने की ज़रूरत है। यूथ, हम हानिया ने भी कहा कि यूथ आके मिल के काम करें, बट यूथ कैसे आएंगी, वो यूथ आगे आके काम कैसे करेंगे साथ में, जबकि आप एक्सेप्ट ही नहीं करते हैं अपने आप को। आप लोगों को एक्सेप्ट कैसे करेंगे कि आप एक बंदा जीबी से बोल रहा है तो उसकी आवाज़ को कौन सुनता है, या आप बलूचिस्तान से कोई बंदा या सिंध, इंटीरियर सिंध से कोई बंदा आके बोल लेता है कि फ्लड से उधर क्या इश्यूज आए हैं, या ग्लेशियर मेल्टिंग से जीबी में क्या इशू आए हैं, या सवात में क्या इश्यूज आए हैं। ये चीज़ें हमें हाईलाइट करने की ज़रूरत है। सेकेंड चीज़ है, एज अ नेशन हमने क्या किया कि बैड गवर्नेंस की बात आई। बैड गवर्नेंस में सिंपल सी बात ये है कि सवात में जितने इस बार जो डिस्ट्रक्शन हुई है वो ह्यूमन मेड है, ठीक है। ह्यूमन मेड इज कि हमने दरिया के किनारे या दरिया की उन चीज़ों पे हमने क्या होटल्स बना के रखे, हमने जो पानी का एक्चुअल जो रास्ता था वो हमने तो ब्लॉक कर लिया है, ठीक है। ब्लॉक कर वो आपको डिस्ट्रक्शन ही देगी, ठीक है। इसी तरह जीबी में यही है सीन है कि आपका जो गवर्नेंस सिस्टम है वो जीरो है, ठीक है। आपकी रिप्रेजेंटेशन नेशनल लेवल पे नहीं है, आपकी रिप्रेजेंटेशन इंटरनेशनल लेवल पे कैसे होगी, जब नेशनल लेवल पे एज आपको या नेशनल लेवल पे आपको एक्सेप्ट ही नहीं कर रहे हैं, आपकी बात कोई सुनी नहीं जा रहा है, ठीक है। आप जीबी से कितने बंदे इस टाइम कॉप में आए थे, ठीक है, इंक्लूडिंग 2 या 3 लोग आए थे, लेकिन उनकी वहाँ पे पाकिस्तान पवेलियन में जीबी की बात हुई है, नहीं हुई है। अली शेख तौकीर साहब यहाँ पे बैठे हुए वो बता सकते हैं, ठीक है। आप किसी नेशनल लेवल पे किसी चैनल पे क्या जीबी के बारे में बताया जाता है या केपीके के बारे में बताया जाता है कि कितनी वल्नरेबल है। फ्रंट लाइन कम्युनिटीज के बारे में कोई नहीं बताता, ठीक है। 2020 के फ्लड्स में केपीके और जीबी जो फर्स्ट हिट हुए हैं, लेकिन उसके बाद पंजाब में आया है ना। पंजाब को तो हर कोई हाईलाइट कर रहा है, सिंध को हर कोई हाईलाइट कर रहा है, ठीक है। वहाँ पे पानी में इतने लोग डूब गए, पानी में पूरे गाँव सिंक हो गए, बट जो फर्स्ट फ्रंट एंड लाइन कम्युनिटीज जो हिट कर गए थे उनकी बात कौन करेगा, ठीक है। आप ये चीज़ें देखो ना। बाकी कोप में इज अ रोलर कोस्टर फॉर मी थे कि जो चीज़ें हम जाएंगे वही पीएम वाली बात है कि हम मांगने नहीं आए थे, ये हमारी मजबूरी है वाली बात है। हम वहाँ पे सिर्फ मांगने जाएंगे, जहाँ फाइनेंस की बात होगी पाकिस्तान मांगने जाएगा, ठीक है। लेकिन गवर्नेंस वो कब ठीक होगा, ठीक है। आपकी यूथ की रिप्रेजेंटेशन लास्ट 2027 COP27 में बात हुई थी कि यूथ बॉडी बनाएंगे, यूथ बॉडी बनी लेकिन उसको एक्शन में लाने की ज़रूरत थी, कोई नहीं बनाया। इस बार इमरान साहब ने कहा कि गवर्नमेंट बुला रही है। इमरान साहब मैं ये लिख के देता हूँ, फिर ये चले जाएगा या ख़त्म होगा, क्योंकि इंटरम गवर्नमेंट है और लोग भी क्वेश्चन कर रहे हैं कि पॉलिटिकल स्टेबिलिटी आएगी तो फिर कुछ पॉलिसीज पे काम होगा। पॉलिटिकल ही स्टेबल नहीं, हमारे पॉलिटिक्स ही स्टेबल नहीं, हमारे लोग ही, हमें पता ही नहीं कि नेक्स्ट 3 साल में हमारा वज़ीर-ए-आज़म रहेगा या नहीं रहेगा। तो हम कैसे हम उसको आगे हम फॉरवर्ड कर सकते हैं कि अपनी पॉलिसीज को इंटरनेशनल लेवल पे बात करें, या इंटरनेशनल लेवल पे जाके हम लॉस एंड डैमेजेस पे या हम उस पे हम स्ट्रॉन्ग केस प्रोड्यूस कर सकें इसके लिए। थैंक यू।
Thank you so much, Kamran, for sharing your views. I think what you highlighted is definitely important कि हम किस तरह से vulnerable communities की आवाज़ों को वहाँ तक पहुँचाएं. But I think being someone जो उस platform तक है, it's also our responsibility to make sure कि हम किस तरह से अपने individual level पे और collective level पे through youth networks किस तरह से उन लोगों की concerns और voices को इन platforms पे highlight कर सकते हैं. But definitely जो case है, जो vulnerable लोग हैं, उनको खुद अपना case present करने का हक भी होना चाहिए. So I think ultimately it translates back to coordinated efforts in the local and national context, and definitely we are pushing for it as young people.